Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Unrecognised Heroes podcast. I'm Gordon Carrera, the host of the Rest is Classified podcast and a security analyst at the BBC. And I'm speaking here on stage at the National Cyber Awards 2025, with a chance really in this podcast to explore the cyber landscape today, a world really which does look full of threats, but also look at what key institutions, organisations and industry in the UK are trying to do to deal with those threats, how they're working together, how they're working with technology, and the kinds of people they're looking for to transform Britain's cybersecurity landscape. I've got up on stage with me a collection of some of the country's top experts on defending ourselves in cyberspace, who I'll introduce in a moment. The aim in the coming minutes is really to recognise what goes on behind the scenes in driving progress in cybersecurity and technology and keeping us all safe, and hearing direct from people about how the cyber landscape is changing and what we can do to respond most effectively. So my four guests are Lieutenant General Sir Tom Coppinger-Simms, Deputy Commander Cyber and Specialist Operations Command, Ministry of Defence; Eleanor Fairford, Director of Cyber Defence, Ministry of Defence; Air Vice Marshal Tim Neal-Hopes, Commander of the National Cyber Force; and Victoria Knight, Strategy and Operations Director of BAE Systems Digital Intelligence. Welcome to all of you. I wonder if I could get each of you just quickly to maybe explain what you do, what your role is in this world of cybersecurity, just so people can understand it and get a grasp on how different organisations perhaps play slightly different roles in defending us.
Thanks, Gordon. So, as you said, Deputy Commander of Cyber and Specialist Operations Command. That, alongside the Army, Navy, the Air Force, I think most people know what they do. Cyber and Specialist Operations Command leads Defence's ability to operate, fight, compete in what we call the cyber and electromagnetic domain. You might want to come back to the electromagnetic bit of that. And we also, in CSOC for short, we have our intelligence capabilities, our special operations capabilities, and a bundle of other things that work in the sort of what some people call the grey zone, the hybrid, some of the capabilities that either you can't see or we don't really want you to see in UK defence.
Great, thank you, Tom. Eleanor, could I come to you? Your role as Director of Cyber Defence at MOD.
Yes, so as the Director for Cyber Defence, I'm effectively the CISO for Defence, so my main interest and preoccupation is in reducing cyber risk across all of defence. So I'm sometimes known as the Enterprise CISO, so kind of sitting across the top, but now housed in the new National Armaments Director Group, so alongside the MSHQ and CSOC that Tom has described. But really my role is an enterprise-wide CISO role, looking at cyber risk across the whole of defence.
Thank you, Eleanor. Tim, could you give us an overview of National Cyber Force?
Absolutely. Well, the National Cyber Force is a little bit different. It's a defence and an intelligence partnership. So 1 foot in defence, 1 foot with the intelligence agencies. And we are unique because we effectively conduct offensive cyber on behalf of the nation. So try to stop those who would do harm to us in and through cyberspace. So deny them the ability to manoeuvre through cyberspace, deter them hopefully to stop conducting operations against us.
Thank you, Tim. Victoria, BAE, the role of private industry is important in this.
Yes, thank you, Gordon. So I'm the Strategy and Ops Director, but I work for BAE Systems, and we've got about 110,000 people who operate in 40 countries supporting customers. We're an advanced defence tech security aerospace company. I work for the Digital Intelligence Division, and we've got about 4,500 cyber and intelligence specialists that support our customers in the critical national infrastructure domain, on national cyber missions, and also our defence and intelligence customers as well. And typically the experts that work in my business look to support our customers in tackling some really hard problems. And my role is to ensure that, one, we evolve our skill base to support our customers, and certainly that we're looking at future horizons to sustain our business and certainly support our customers in combating the threat landscape.
Thank you. It does feel like it's been quite a year in cybersecurity, doesn't it? I mean, every year feels like quite a year, but this one really does. I mean, maybe because we've seen so many incidents which perhaps have affected businesses and the general public, as well as some of the more kind of shadowy state threats and espionage we've come to hear more about in recent years in the worlds of grey zone activities and all these kind of things. I just wonder if you could give us a sense of whether it does feel different for each of you. I mean, has it felt different behind the scenes in terms of the landscape that you're operating in, what you're facing? Tom, do you want to go first?
Yeah, so yes is the easy answer. It does feel a bit different. I mean, inevitably, a lot of defence is focused on the what we would call the old-fashioned domains, air and maritime and cyber, and clearly events in Ukraine, for instance, preoccupy most people's times. And people are used to seeing things happen in defence. They're used to, the incursions over the airspace in Poland the other day. They're used to seeing a picture of that. And of course, in cyberspace, that's a bit different. You often can't see this stuff. So the way it feels different is that this extraordinary level of activity and threat going on, and yet the public isn't necessarily fully aware of that yet. And one of the ghastly bonuses of such a year is that public perceptions are changing and public awareness is changing, not least some of the ransomware attacks on large companies. So it certainly feels different in that way. And of course, selfishly for us, the Cyber and Specialist Operations Command, we launched about a month ago, and that's a big change. So that feels different. And putting cyber on the tin, calling ourselves cyber, I think will make a lot of difference for people knowing where to come and speak to in UK defence on cyber.
It's kind of recognition this isn't something at the edges of military operations, but right at the centre of it, I guess.
Absolutely. I think in the bad old days, would have been thought of as an enabler or a supporting act. And I think people are realising that, before any shot is fired in a war, a lot is going on in cyberspace and a lot is happening every single day.
And Eleanor, do you see that as well in your kind of, as you said, CISO role at the Ministry of Defence? Has it felt different in terms of what you're facing?
Yeah, I think really, it's been a horrendous year, obviously, for malicious cyber activity, but the kind of slight upside is that it's really brought it to life and it's really demonstrated those real world impacts that we're talking about, hasn't it? So I think in defence, typically we've maybe thought of cyber as off to the side. It's to do with comms. It's to do with, adversaries managing to get into your communications networks. But actually, no, it's about being able to turn on your kit, being able to get to the front line of the war that you need to fight, or whatever it is you need to be ready for defence. So for me, this has been an opportunity, an unfortunate, but nonetheless an opportunity to really highlight how critical it is, how business critical it is, including for bits of government like ours in defence.
Tim, you're limited, we all know, in given the role you have in talking about the kind of operational state you might be in and the kinds of things you might be doing. But I'm guessing the demands on you or the expectations are different and higher as cyber changes in the political and in the kind of governmental mind.
Absolutely. And we've always said that cyberspace is increasingly becoming the most contested domain environment in which we operate, live and work. And this year has absolutely brought that to life. There's not a day that goes by where there isn't some story about a breach or a threat appearing in the press. And there have been some real hallmark events, be that operational production, operation of companies. Remember this last year as well, it's the first time you've seen the death of an individual, a UK citizen, being attributed partially to a cyber and ransomware attack. So absolutely it feels real. But I think that's a double-edged sword, because it can drive you to a very reactive posture if you're constantly chasing the latest headline or the latest story. And I think the lesson for all of us to take away and really seize in this year is to have success in cyberspace, to be secure in cyberspace. You've got to be proactive, because the threat's being proactive against us, and we've got to do exactly the same there.
Yeah. So to go after threat, and maybe it's worth just explaining what National Cyber Force consists of, because it's got a lot of different components, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And we deliberately set it up to draw in the skills, the talent and the insight from across the nation. The key word in the National Cyber Force is that national piece. And we're 5.5 years old now. And when we were formed, we were drawn between GCHQ, and there is no better organisation in understanding what is going on in cyberspace and the threat that is being presented to us. And so one of those partner organisations that I work closely with is the National Cyber Security Centre. The second major element within the National Cyber Force is defence. MOD civil servants and the Army, the Air Force and the Navy, again giving that operational insight in terms of what's been done and conducting operations against the adversary back there as well. And then two other key partners within the National Cyber Force. Defence's Science and Tech Labs. How do you keep at the cutting edge of technology, in particular those military threats being conducted against us? And SIS, MI6, the ability to get to cyberspace and parts of cyberspace you couldn't do any other way, but also their brilliant understanding there, the traditional Q image that you have of bright young things coming up with cunning ideas. And it really is that power of the partnership, both in terms of the people, the technologies, the understanding, but also the authorizations, because I can draw down on the authorities of both the Foreign Secretary and the Intelligence Acts, as well as the laws of armed conflict through the Secretary of State for Defence. And in a domain that's constantly contested, for me to be able to conduct ops, I need those authorities in place. And the National Cyber Force is blessed by having that construct and that legal oversight in what we do.
Victoria, what about the view from the private sector? And I guess the private sector is often the target of a lot of these attacks that we've seen, but also you're working with government to provide support and integrate. So maybe talk a little bit about how that looks from your perspective.
Yeah, so certainly our customers are changing and the way they, what they're doing and how they're structured. We've seen the emergence of CSOC, the evolution of NCF and its maturing position, and the responsibility of our customers and how the cyber agenda has risen, and the responsibility from national security to defence and how that's become more embedded. And so we've been navigating and charting that. The other things that we've seen really around the evolution of competition, particularly from an industry perspective. So as a defence prime traditionally, where we've been making large aircraft or vessels, certainly now our competition can be small startups who have got niche capability, who we need to learn to work with and how we integrate with each other to work better, and certainly large tech companies as well. And that leads me on to one of the biggest impacts is, the emergence and evolution and the pace of change in the technological landscape. How do we chart and navigate the world of artificial intelligence, not only in terms of what that does to us as BAE Systems and how we automate our processes, our manufacturing and the way that we work, but certainly how we become better experts in leading and guiding and shaping our customers. And just on the last point is the competition for talent. Industry, government, academia, we're all fishing for talent. So how can we better certainly broaden that out to a wider group of folk and ensure that we've got the right professionals in the right place to support our customers?
I mean, it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because if there's a shortage of talent, you don't want to all be competing for it. You want to grow the talent pool. I guess that's a challenge, is it?
Absolutely. And I think if we adopt a paradigm, it's about fishing for that same talent. I think we've got exactly the wrong model. One of the great things that we've done through regional partnerships, particularly up in the Lancashire area where we're setting our new headquarters up, is all the way down to 6 and 7 year olds, showing what the opportunities are there for brilliant young boys and girls to have career in cybersecurity and cyber operations, and get their interest young, and they will come and join us and just make it as easy as possible there. So I don't think it's all about sort of competing for that talent. It's how do we collectively invest in that talent? How do we collectively grow it? And then it doesn't actually matter if they join BAE, the intelligence agencies or defence. As long as they come to some part of the ecosystem, that has to be good for the UK.
I mean, just to double down on that, it's also through a course of somebody's career, it's highly unlikely people in cyber are going to stay in defence for 35 years, as I've done. And it's far more likely they're going to join maybe one of the uniformed services, then move over to the civil service, to industry, and maybe come back. So this idea of zigzag careers, however you want to typify it, I think you're going to see a far greater spread of workforce, both in and out of uniform, in and out of government. And that idea of sort of one defence incorporating industry, I think is really taking off.
Because that's something that maybe in the past people have felt the UK hasn't always been as good at. Maybe in the US there's been more, moving between, particularly defence and various parts of it in the private sector. Is that relationship in a better place? Does it still need to get in a better place?
It's getting there. I mean, look, some bits we've done brilliantly. So the use of reservists, for instance, in defence, both in and out of uniform, people who bring, very, very advanced skills, whether they're technical skills or sort of C-suite skills, we've used them very flexibly. I mean, since the Second World War, you remember the old stories of the Mulberry Harbours, people being brought into defence to help us crack problems. So I think we've had very good examples for getting it right, but we haven't done nearly enough of it. And I think now, particularly with industry, things are changing quite radically, and we're seeing it much more as a sort of this one defence idea.
Yeah. Eleanor, do you find it, is it hard to recruit and retain the talent? Do they move around? Is that something you're comfortable with, or are there security clearance issues and things like that?
So there's a lot of effort underway to really professionalise in cybersecurity and in technical roles generally across government, and that does mean bringing people in from outside. It's probably not as fluid as moving around the private sector. We have to acknowledge there are certain obstacles such as the clearances, etc. But typically, those who do come in, so if you come in with a really strong cybersecurity background, it can open up access to a whole new, interesting security world that you may not have had access to before. So there is more that is available, I think, to those professionals who come in from industry, and they do get access to new areas they wouldn't typically get access to. And I just wanted to pick up as well, I came from the National Cybersecurity Centre before, where a lot of effort was put into bringing down the barriers between cybersecurity in government and industry. And of course, they had I-100 and they had industry engagement across the board. And I would say that particularly in areas like cyber and other technical areas, we are generally doing a better job across government of bringing down the barriers between industry and government in order to ensure that skills transfer, because there's no way that we can do it on our own in government, and we need to have that revolving door as we're acknowledging.
What I have seen this year is we're doing a better job together, or certainly there's an appetite to work together, industry, academia, and particularly up in Lancashire with mobilising Cyberforce. We've been doing a lot of work together, Tim, over the last 5 years, which has been brilliant, about how we talk about the exciting careers that cyber has to offer, because we're competing for talent, but actually the work that the colleagues here conduct, people are genuinely excited about it, and we're finding ways to declassify and talk to people about some of the mission areas that may interest them. We're recruiting about 2,900 apprentices this year, and 1,300 of those learn while they learn. So we're offering some really exciting opportunity to people. And when they do come to us, the relationship between industry and the MOD, we're accelerating some of our secondment programs. So there are people going both ways into industry and back again, and supporting reservist campaigns as well. So we've got 40,000 people in the UK. So ensuring we're encouraging reservists within our organisation is something that we're doing together and working on that branding.
Sure. Can I just add in that cybersecurity careers are not just this blob of technical stuff, right? There's so much variety in the field, isn't there? And I think we risk pigeonholing these sort of types of individuals
you have
who...
to be a certain type of
techie. Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
A certain type of coder, person.
I did French and philosophy at university, right? You can come from all backgrounds.
Me not.
Exactly. So it feels like we shouldn't stereotype, and we shouldn't expect to be growing identikit little sort of people working their way through the careers, but rather you should be able to move around and bring different skills, and it's very varied. So I think just to acknowledge the breadth of the career that's available.
Yeah, Tim.
And I think we've got a strange psychology and perhaps a little bit of a blind spot within the community, and perhaps it's because we come from a sort of technical background so much. We absolutely champion and celebrate innovation in terms of technology. And yet, if we think about our process, particularly people processes, I would challenge us that we are nowhere near as innovative as we really should. And it's not just in the technical professions. I need lawyers, policy individuals, behavioural scientists, linguists. I'll quite happily employ anyone with good language skills. But how do we make it easy for them to join us? And we've just conducted in the Northwest, but it was open to the entirety of the nation, direct entry. Now, organisations like the National Cyber Force, it's one of the only places where you can conduct cyber effects, so offensive cyber operations, legally in the UK. what a great opportunity, what an exciting career for a youngster to come and join us. So we've got to make it easy for them to do so. So that's exactly what we did. And we've recruited not based on whether you've got a PhD or a master's. All you needed was 2 GCSEs. And it was based on your aptitude, your attitude. And we were trying to take the brightest and the best and make it easy to do so. And if we want to celebrate diversity, we've got to do that to get individuals from in across the community.
Tom, I mean, what kind of techniques are you using to try and get people in? Or are you finding lots of people from the regular military saying, I want to get involved in cyber and I want the technical skills?
So we are. So I mean, pretty much everything. Because to pick up Vic's point, this is a population level challenge. You know, it's not just a government thing. Or, you know, this is a challenge for the whole country and indeed the whole of the sort of, you know, whatever we call ourselves now, the Western world. So what are we doing? Tim's mentioned the direct entry cyber. That means people are joining at this stage the Navy and the Air Force, soon to be the Army as well. But they're doing very, very short amount of training, really, so they can wear a uniform, but not much else. And then we bring them into cyber skills. A lot of surprises there. I mean, not least, you know, as well as people with aptitude, we've had PhDs sign up. We've had a couple of master's degrees in quite a small pilot cohort. So that's been amazingly successful. Bursaries to keep kids in STEM skills at school has been very successful and very popular, as you can imagine. But as Eleanor said, this is not just about STEM. You know, it's even beyond STEAM, and whether you need French philosophers or lawyers or whatever else, there's a whole village in cyber that we need to recruit. So some of the other initiatives we've gone after, I mean, esports is my current favorite topic.
Okay.
So, you know, who knew that everybody broadly underneath the age of 35 is gaming, you know, probably like we watch television in our day. Many of the skills that they develop there, contrary to their parents' prejudices, are very helpful for their lives in the digital world.
It's a good
that
message
can
to
be,
get out.
you know, both for cyber skills, for digital skills, but also in the mainstream military, you know, the fine motor skills, flying drones, these sorts of things are all developed online. And who knew a huge amount of teamwork? Now, not necessarily teamwork in the physical world, but the ability to collaborate and work with people in the virtual world is really, really important and is a fundamental skill in cyberspace. Yeah. And when we talk about, I don't know, industry integration with government or whatever, that ability to reach out, yes, in person, in physical space, but in virtual space and work well together is a real skill that we're going to lean on for the rest of this century.
Yeah, it's interesting. I may have teenagers who may have, you know, played computer games and have seen them actually cooperate online and work together again, you know, with other people, you know, and it's quite interesting, isn't it? The skill set that actually some people can develop through some of these ways which maybe we wouldn't have thought of in the past. Victoria?
Yeah, and I think, you know, to Eleanor's point around offering the breadth of opportunity, but also it can be fun as well. And so when our teams go out, we run a number of capture the flag events and we ensure that people engage and they enjoy it. They're problem solving, logic puzzles, breaking down websites, trying our Hacker Quest website, where if they manage to break the code in the website, it sort of says, come and apply for a job here. And so we've got examples of people who have been landscape gardeners, a steak chef, a PE teacher. There are people coming to join us from all walks of life who are also, you know, we're using aptitude profiling from esports and all those sort of algorithms that folk are using for people who are persistent, want to solve problems, and, you know, are excited by the opportunity. But we're also trying to use other ways and work with government partners to recruit people. So not our non-traditional recruitment methods also apply to industry. We've had some great success of working with GCHQ as well, with Code First Girls and Coding Black Females to bring gender and ethnic diversity into our workforce. And that's great for junior talent, but we also need senior, experienced managers and leaders. And so we've teamed up with, I met a great lady called Becky Taylor actually at an event in Manchester. And there was a chap on a panel sort of saying how short we were for cyber talent in the UK. And she put her hand up and said, excuse me, mate, you're looking in the wrong place. I wanted a job and I couldn't get one after I had 2 kids, so I set my own company up. If you call me after this, I've got about 20,000 CVs you can look through. And so she has a model whereby they bring people in, train them up on skills. They may have been experienced managers and leaders in other industries. And they go through a 3-month course with us or with tech returners, and then we bring them into the business. So it's about looking for new talent and young people, but also thinking about how you're going to balance that workforce and bring maturity as well, and leaders and managers in as well.
Tim?
Just to springboard off what Vic said there as well, I think we can do a better job of giving an insight into what a career and a job in cybersecurity and cyber operations looks like. It can be quite an opaque world because of the virtual nature. So whether it's academia, industry, defence, or the intelligence agencies, bringing people in, giving them a couple of weeks insight to actually see what the job looks like. And as importantly, look at the individuals who are doing it. And I think it's that role modelling. I have some brilliant individuals from all walks of life, all genders, to work alongside. And it's the idea of I can aspire to be that individual there. Really key.
I think there's a big theme here for government in general, but particularly defence. I think for too long we've expected for people to come and meet us where we are, rather than us going to meet them where they are in life. And that plays out a whole range of things. I mean, this talent conversation is clearly a critical one. To, I think, a lot of people outside defence, unless you've had a relation in the Army, Navy, or Air Force, you don't really. Yeah, it's sort of that's what people admire it, they like it, but it's not for them. So I think we need to bridge that gap. And then look, we get a lot of criticism about our procurement system as well. And there, what we're trying to do is change. Instead of saying we want that, we're trying to share our problems with people and saying how could we fix for these problems. And I think that, if there's one thing that I would notice amongst the sort of world of cyber and digital is not actually necessarily particular STEM skills or this or that. It's problem solvers, people who love solving problems and who can think around problems or through problems in a different way. And I think just the bravery of sharing the problems we need to solve with people will be hugely attractive to them to feel that they've got a role in defence in that much broader one defence identity.
I mean, artificial intelligence is clearly relates to this partly as a skills question. Are people going to need to have that knowledge of AI, but also is AI going to replace some of these skills? What's it going to? I just wonder what you at the moment feel it is meaning for your organisations, and what it might mean in the future, where you see it going. Is it going to help offence or defence when it comes to cybersecurity? Eleanor?
Yeah, these are really good questions. I think AI and the rapid pace of change in the technological sector in general, but epitomised by AI, demonstrates how we do need to keep up and how we need to keep these skills fresh. We need to be implementing changes within our defensive organisations that keep up with the rest of the world. So on my side, in terms of cybersecurity, I think the challenge is, are we making the best use of the tools available? Can we incorporate the latest developments in technology at the same pace that the rest of the world is doing so? There's a real challenge here for how we modernise and upgrade and bolster our cyber defences using the available technologies such as AI. And I do think if we can get that right, then we can be best in class alongside others in comparable sectors, and we can have our defences at the appropriate level. The fear is that it's our adversaries who are harnessing it at a greater rate than we are, and therefore perhaps able to weaponise, and that's where you end up in this kind of arms race between offence and defence, and I know colleagues will have views on that as well.
I think it's firstly important to sort of break down the different flavours of AI. There's AI that will allow us just to be more efficient and effective in our business as usual, and we have to do that as responsible taxpayers, but also to keep up with the threat that's out there. Secondly, there's the opportunity to use AI and conduct your current business in a different fashion, in a way you haven't perceived. And then thirdly, it's a whole new way of doing business, a whole new conduct of operations. And we have to try and stay ahead of the threat in each of those three areas. I know there's the perennial debate of who does it favour more, the defender or the attacker. And I think the answer is both. And it will ebb and flow over time, and there's technologies and tools and techniques come into to play from that side. So I think it's being open to that incremental factor, but that means it's a constant investment that you've got to be able to do, and a constant comfort with testing and trying to use AI. The other thing I would say is it's a double-edged sword. AI can just as easily introduce new vulnerabilities and new cybersecurity threats to you if you don't introduce it responsibly. And certainly from an offensive cyber side of the house, I know AI is quite often perceived to be killer drones in cyberspace, and that's absolutely not what it is. In the same way, are we responsible, legal, precise, discriminate in what we do in terms of our current operations? We are absolutely the same in terms of the employment of AI in anything that we would use on
You're not recruiting Terminator robots, is what you're telling me.
No, and I don't think that will happen for the foreseeable.
Okay, good.
I think there's another side to AI, without sort of bringing us back to the doldrums of legacy infrastructure. There's a lot of focus on implementing AI, automating things. Customers are asking for widgets and gizmos. There is a massive legacy estate that needs to be managed, and we've got to balance that challenge, particularly when we're giving people work to do to ensure we keep the lights on and, you know, keep a stable foundation. But also when we are implementing artificial intelligence into operations or into our own systems, that we're not losing the knowledge that's growing from the AI foundation to be able to go back. If you need to break glass, who's going to be able to ask the question of the AI? Where have you gone to? What have you done? How can we analyse or retrospectively look at what's happened? And I'm very mindful and conscious with the people that we have that we need to retain that skill and knowledge base to be able to do that, because if we lose trust in AI, and lots of people freely trust AI. There was a chap in Hong Kong, I think, who made transfers of $25 million from a business because of the AI-generated colleagues that appeared on the screen in a sophisticated attack. That individual didn't question those who were calling him, speaking to him, groomed him, and then led him to be able to transfer huge sums of money.
So it sounds like we need to be able to use the AI, but also know when to be skeptical or
Yes.
kind of treat it with a degree of caution in some ways.
Yeah.
The risks.
So we might come back to the whole topic of misinformation and AI and that, which
Yeah.
I
Could
think
accelerate it. Yeah.
is already accelerating it. But I think a lot of people still don't think of that as cyber. They
Yeah.
think of something else. But the more we exploit technology to help us either run the business or do the business, the more flank we have. So whether it gives the attacker more advantage, there's a lot more to defend.
Yeah.
And so that's one realization that I think people are struggling to realize with. You know, my own view is AI will for a long time augment humans rather than replace them. And therefore we have less to fear from it than we might think. But we do need to understand that flank that we're creating. And the other bit, of course, is the AI lives on data. And I think when we talk about sort of supply chain attacks in cyber, we aren't necessarily thinking of the supply chain that is our data. And so getting a grip on the ownership of your data and how people could poison your data to then have an impact, I think is going to become a very big
Feels like the next
preoccupation.
frontier, doesn't it?
That's one of the next frontiers. And again, this brings us back to people, you know, that you're going to need a whole bunch of different skill sets and mindsets to be able to counter that.
Yeah. I just wonder, I mean, you know, we talked about having been a difficult year. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of disruption. You know, there's a lot of speed of technological advancement. We've got AI in there as well. There's questions about skills. I sense that you're all feeling not totally pessimistic, which is sometimes the mood you get from people. It's like, it's all doom. But actually, it feels like each of you feels there are things that we can do, or that we as a country can do to deal with some of these challenges, and that there are probably people in your organizations, the unrecognized heroes, who are working hard to do that. So I just wonder if each of you could maybe just reflect a bit on that, and what are the positives, or what we should be doing and are doing, and who are the people doing it that we should watch out for and kind of support.
Yeah, so it's always, as a superstitious soldier, it's always dangerous to reflect on the good stuff. But
Okay.
I mean, look, this country has an amazing tech base. We have 4 of the best AI research universities in the world, the top 10. We have an amazingly skilled workforce, and we have a lot to be proud of in this space, both in sort of cybersecurity and in AI research and so on. So there's a lot to be positive about, but there's a lot of hard yards to do. We've spoken about skills a lot. We've spoken a little bit about infrastructure. We all know that we're not where we need to be, both in critical minerals or necessarily in sort of chip fabrication. And we used to be good at that in this country. I mean, really good at that.
We're now
30 years
dependent,
ago.
yeah.
We're now very dependent. We probably need to wean ourselves off some of that dependency. So there's everything to be cheerful about, and yet there's a lot of hard work to do. And some of it is unglamorous work that we need to get at pretty quickly.
I would say there's reasons to be cheerful in terms of recognising the prominence of the topic. You know, you cannot help but see the need for investment and skills development in all of the ways that we've been describing. And of course, this has been recognised centrally in government, hasn't it, with the commitment to increase the numbers of civil servants who are dedicated to digital work to around 10%, I think. So that represents a really valuable uplift in that as a priority area for government. And as Tom says, the more that we develop our digital and technological base, the more that the security will be required alongside. So I feel like it's appropriately recognised to be invested in as it ought to be, and that if nothing else at this stage, that gives me cause for hope.
It feels like cyber and technology is being mainstreamed in a way,
Yeah.
in a way that hadn't been in the past, which is a good thing, is an important thing. It sometimes gets subsumed in other things as a result, but at least it's considered central. Tim, what about you?
Thanks, Gordon. I'm going to go back to the sort of the title, Unsung Heroes.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a really privileged position that most of us get to sit behind the veil of security and see the remarkable things that our people do, be that disrupting threats online, stopping attacks against the nation. And that's a remarkable privilege to see. The talent that we have in the UK is there. We've just got to make it easier for us to join. And the other thing I would just say, that we have the national constructs, be the National Cyber Force, the innovation that was set up 5.5 years ago, the National Cyber Security Centre, now almost a decade old. CSOC is a new enterprise in defence. We are constantly innovating there. So I think as long as we keep pushing that, then I think we're in a really, really strong position.
Yeah, because we have created some of those structures ahead of, NCSC and others were ahead of others.
We are world leading in so many ways. The way we talk about offensive cyber, for example, responsible cyber power in practice, we're the only nation who's published that.
Yeah.
In fact, we turned it into a gamified version to educate the next generation as to what we do, show their careers there. Our support to NATO, we're one of the first nations to offer our support into that space. So we genuinely still push the boundaries, both in terms of technology, but our constructs, and our people will look after us as well.
Victoria?
Yeah, I think that, when I reflect on the UK and where we are in this domain, I think that there are so many things to be proud of. The online safety bill, as an example, is quite world leading, which is, looks after our citizens in the way we operate online and live out our lives. The very foundation of the ethical behaviour of the way that we operate in the UK as a cyber power. And certainly, independently, the UK isn't doing badly on a world stage. The Belfast Centre's ranked as number 4. So, we're punching above our weight for an island in the globe. We're doing really well. And at a local level, what do I see? We've recently put a job ad out for cyber apprentices. We're having over 100 applications for one job. So that's telling me that people want to work for us and they want to be in this industry. You've touched on the work that your former employer, the NCSC, do and the constructs that we have. And I can't sort of go through this discussion without giving a shout out to Cyber First, which is part of the NCSC. Yeah. For years, I've been supporting them, particularly a bias towards the girls' competition that they run every year. And we do a run-up called these Empower events where we go out to schools and help people bring teams together. And they've had 80,000 girls go through the competition since its inception. So young people really want to get engaged. And, they do all sorts of adventurers, trailblazers. So I think, we're in a really good place. People are excited about it. So I don't feel that all the work that we're doing is, lost on society.
Yeah, thank you. Because I think it is important that there can be a lot of doom and the sky's falling in cyber, but actually to reflect on the things we're doing well. And here at the national, the Cyber Awards, we do celebrate those people who've actually, played their role in, defending the country, defending organisations, defending individuals. And I think that's one of the things that makes it, important, is that kind of the positive side of cyber rather than just seeing the negative.
Yeah, and I mean, just to double down, when have we been at our best as a nation? When we have been under a certain amount of threat. And then slightly against the sort of idea of fusty Britain, we are this incredible innovation, incredible ability to do things differently, to reinvent ourselves. And it feels like this is one of those times. So the threat's a bad thing, but if that gets us energized, makes us realize nobody owes us a living out there, we are top 4 or 5 in pretty much everything, but there's plenty to play for.
Something to celebrate. Well, thank you very much to my 4 guests, Lieutenant General Sir Tom Coppinger-Sims from the Ministry of Defence, Eleanor Fairford, Director of Cyber Defence, Air Vice Marshal Tim Neal-Hopes, Commander of National Cyber Force, Victoria Knight from BAE Systems Digital Intelligence. Thank you also to everyone here at the National Cyber Awards and associated with it for making this possible. And thank you, all of those who've listened and watched, for joining us for this special edition of the Unrecognised Heroes podcast. And we'll see you next time. Thank you.